Are we live?
We're live on YouTube.
Okay. Don't see any attendees coming in yet. Karen, let us know when you're going to bring people in.
And Karen, if you want me to make me a co-host, go ahead. Well, it looks like we are going, so we can go ahead and get started and people might filter in. We are definitely live on YouTube. We have some folks watching on YouTube.
Okay, great, great. I just don't see any attendees in the meeting yet, but we want to go to the language channel slide, Emily. Welcome all. We're going to get started today. Thank you all for joining us here at the first virtual Central Bikeway meeting. We're going to go over a couple of housekeeping items first. So we'll have 2 language interpretation services today, both in Spanish and Vietnamese. So if you would like language translation, you can join at the interpretation link at the bottom of your screen, and we'll have an interpreter there available for you who will be translating the presentation. For Spanish today, we have Elizabeth, and for Vietnamese, we have Quy today. So thank you both for being here. All right. A lot of us have been using Zoom over the last few months, but if you haven't, we wanted to just go over some directions here. So if you are a member of an organization or possibly a city, we ask that you rename yourself by right-clicking on your name. For all of our attendees today and our participants, we'll have 2 opportunities today to do questions and answers throughout the presentation. And we ask that you type those in the Q&A box down at the bottom. The reason for that is we'll be having team members read your questions live. That way we can translate them for everyone in our meeting today. We also ask that you keep yourselves muted. We will have a large Q&A session at the end of the meeting when you'll be able to unmute yourself and ask a question by raising your hand if you like. And you'll be able to do that using the raise hand feature. We just ask that everyone treat all of our participants today with respect and kindness. We really value all diverse views and opinions here at VTA, and we'd like to hear all those views and opinions today in this call. We also wanted to note that this meeting is being recorded for posting or distribution purposes. So here are some of our tools on the screen: our raise hand feature and our question and answer feature. If you need help today, don't hesitate to ask in the Q&A. If your question is technical, a team member will answer it. If your question is about the project or the process today, we'll be having team members read your questions aloud. We just want to go over the interpretation slide one more time and then we'll get started, Emily. So thank you all for joining again. For people who just need interpretation today, you can click on the interpretation link there at the below and select your channel. For Spanish, we have Elizabeth interpreting for us today, and in the Vietnamese channel, we have Quy interpreting for us today. So thank you everyone for being here. All right, here's our team. These are the primary members that will be presenting to you all today. My name is Brent. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I work for VTA. I'm VTA's project manager for the Central Bikeway project. With us today, we also have Emily and Jennifer from our primary consultant team, altaplanning, and we have special guests, Jackie and Sarah. There are community partners who have joined our team They are going to be helping us throughout the project engage with you all. So we're really excited to have them here today as well. Next slide, Emily. Also want to thank our partners. We have them on the call today too. A lot of this project is building on a lot of agencies' other work. So we have team members from the City of San Jose, the County of Santa Clara, the City of Santa Clara with us today on the call. They're important partners and we're working with them very closely. And a lot of the work that we'll be talking about with you today is actually building on bike planning work that they have already done. And I also wanted to thank Caltrans, our funding partner, for helping fund this study. So today we're going to talk about principles of engagement. That's kind of our philosophy, if you will, about how we're going to engage with you throughout this project. We'd like to create a set of shared principles with the community throughout the project. We're going to cover the background of how we got to what a super bicycle highway is, what the Central Bikeway is, and we're going to hopefully hear from you all about what your vision is for the project. Do a quick schedule update, and then we're going to do kind of an interactive polling session where we'll ask you questions about your needs and wants, potential challenges for what a bicycle superhighway may look like in our county. And then we're going to do a quick online demo for a tool that we'll have available to you all online over the next month, where you can participate in a survey and do a mapping tool. And we'll walk you through those steps. And then we'll have a robust question and answer session again at the end. So with that, I'd like hopefully Jackie and Sarah to just introduce themselves and maybe share a little bit about why they've joined our team and how they're going to help us out today.
I could go ahead and go. So hi everybody, my name is Jackie Franco, and I am a co-owner of Meta LLC. It's a cooperative owned business in East San Jose, and we work really close with community and nonprofits and organizations that serve the people in our neighborhood. And just really excited to be part of this partnership and share space with everybody here, and get to really involve the community in this so that they could give their ideas and perspectives on this project. Thank you.
And my name is Sarah Jeitlein. I am the volunteer coordinator and also handle special projects with the Guadalupe River Park Conservancy. We are the nonprofit partner of the City of San Jose and the active use of the Guadalupe River Park. And we have a lot of programming centric to volunteerism, of course, and education. And we're very excited to be involved in connecting the greater bikeways of the San Jose area via the Central Bikeway. So we're very happy to be here and happy to see the project through.
Great, thanks both of you.
Hi everybody. So today, make the workshop a little bit more engaging, we're going to be presenting a series of interactive polls throughout the presentation. So at this time, we'd like everyone to go ahead and open up this link on a web browser. It's pollev.com/altaplanning107. You can go whether you are participating in Zoom or watching over YouTube. If you're in Zoom, we're going to put that into the Q&A in just a moment, so you can click on it. When you go to this website, it'll ask you for your name. You're welcome to drop your name in, or you can also skip that step. You'll see a question around notifications. You can click Not Now to skip that, and then you're going to see an example question. So we'd like you to go ahead and answer that question. That's going to be a multiple choice type. Throughout the presentation, you will also be seeing a couple of write-in questions as well as a ranking question. Please keep this web browser open. We're going to be turning on new polls throughout the presentation. So you'll go to the same web browser to access the question. So let's go ahead and to the next slide. We'll see if people are understanding it. It looks like everybody is getting how this works. So great, wonderful. I'm going to pass it back over to Bren.
Great, thanks Libby for that overview. So our first question today is going to be a question about who's here. It's a demographics question, so it'll ask you a series of 4 things. VTA collects demographic information to help us when we do our studies. These are totally voluntary questions. We do plan to share the answers on the screen. They'll be completely anonymous, so you can choose to share or not. But it does help us know who's in the room today, maybe if people from your community are here, and it also helps us relate our work to the communities that we're trying to engage with. So we'll give you all a few moments to fill out those questions. Looks like we have oh, look at that. So at least what's been shared is we've got, an age range that's 35 to 54. It's a little more spread out now. That's great. So we're getting a diverse set of opinions there. And we have a little more slanted towards there's maybe more men in the room today. And we have some attendees who are of Hispanic Latino origin. That's great. We'll be connecting with quite a few communities of color in North San Jose and East San Jose. And okay, some people prefer not to say, and that's okay too. Thank you all so much. That's really helpful for our work today. Okay, let's move forward. So some of you are probably asking about what a bicycle superhighway is, and I just wanted to share a little bit about how we got here. This project's really building on an already fabulous network of bikeways that we have in the county. We have over 800 miles that exist today. 200 miles of those are actually off-street paths, so already really high quality facilities. VTA has a vision for the county of a network of bicycle superhighways that can get you to where you need to go in a comfortable way that's low stress. And we envision those crossing the county over long distances. We hope that these facilities can be joyful and provide you the opportunity to not be stressed out while you're riding either on roads or potentially trails. And that's what we'll be thinking about and looking at as part of this study. So in 2018, VTA completed work on a countywide bike plan. And as an agency, we're responsible with doing bike planning work across the county. And we work very closely with our local jurisdictions for bikeways and pedestrian ways within their own local jurisdictions. So we work together and we combine those plans together. The countywide bike plan does some additional things. It actually looks at places where there may be gaps in our overall network, how we can better connect bikeways between jurisdictions and cities, and providing high quality connections, either to transit or destinations that we all want to go. So as part of this work in the countywide bike plan, we heard from the community very loud and clear that they want types of facilities that are low stress. And we also heard that there's a lack of a way in the county to get in an east-west direction. And so the idea of the Central Bikeway, which is laid out across the county in an east-west direction, came directly from feedback, potentially from you all, if you participated in our bike planning work a few years ago. So thank you. Here's a quick vision of what the network would look like. It's based on 12 potential candidate corridors. And the Central Bikeway is our first bicycle superhighway corridor, kind of in the middle there in black. So it connects a few corridors that travel north and south, generally high quality corridors that exist today, like the Guadalupe River Trail or the San Tomas Aquino Trail, or perhaps the Stevens Creek Trail that you've ridden on. And then it will also be connecting as far east and in North San Jose as the Upper Penitencia Creek Trail, which is near the Newberry Espart Station. These facilities may be on the street, they may be protected, but they may also use portions of these corridors or potentially county expressways as well. So here's what our study area looks like. Note there are no lines on the map for routes today. We're really talking about big picture things, vision, what your needs are, where do we want this to be. But I did want to note that the study area connects to some pretty important destinations. We're kind of hovering over the Caltrain line there. We have connections to Lawrence Station and Santa Clara Station. We go very near the airport. We connect to both VTA light rail, numerous VTA bus routes, and the new Berryessa BART station in Northeast San Jose. So the area that we're going to be talking about today is this area in blue. So our vision for the project is to create a bicycle superhighway that will provide a joyful, continuous, connected, and comfortable bikeway between Santa Clara and North San Jose. I want to let that sink in just a second. I want you to remember that J and those 3 C's, because those are going to be really important. The joyful, the continuous, the connected, the comfortable. Those are the types of interactive questions that we're going to be asking you about today. We really want to know about what you think those things mean, and that will help us plan for where this type of facility could go. So here's a high-level overview of what we'll be doing throughout the study. Right now, we're just at that first top item, the top of the slide. We're really looking at existing conditions, which is basically what's out there right now, what's already been planned by the city of Santa Clara, by the county, by VTA, or by San Jose, and assessing how we can incorporate those plans into the Central Bikeway vision. We'll then come out at a later date and time after we collect feedback from you all today and maybe have some draft lines on a map. And it will be based on some analysis that we do and based on your feedback. And we'll talk to you about what those things are at a later date and time. And then eventually we'll be creating a document which captures all of this work into a draft study, the input that we received from the public, the input that we received from our policymakers, and eventually creating a final report so we can go look for some money to build this facility. So with that, I wanted to remind people we're just going to do a quick Q&A break to see if anyone had any questions. At this time, we're asking people to still stay muted. You'll be able to unmute and raise your hand at the last Q&A for the session today. But if anyone had any questions, if you wanted to type them in the Q&A, you're welcome to now. If there are any questions in our interpretation channels, if our interpreters could also write those in the Q&A. I'm not seeing any currently, and that's okay. Great. Also wanted to just note too, if anyone needs a presentation that's in another language, we have those links in the Q&A and we can repost them again. That will take you to our website where you could download the presentation and follow along in the slide in another language. Okay. Libby, Jennifer, did you want to call out a few questions before we move forward? If there are any.
Sure. Yeah, we have some questions now in the chat. Someone asked if you are calling it a bicycle freeway or superhighway, are there plans to build bridges or elevated bikeways as part of it?
That's a great question. That may be a possibility. And it will be based on the feedback that we received from you all here today, but those options right now are potentially on the table, yes. In some locations, it may be on the street. In some locations, it may be on a bridge. And in some locations, it may be on an existing trail. We'll have to see. Okay.
We have another question around outreach. Someone would like to know the outreach plan, other avenues beyond this workshop.
It's a great question. So after this meeting, well, actually now we have a virtual open house that will be available for the next few weeks. And on that open house, We'll be posting links or sharing links to it later in this meeting. We have a more detailed survey that you'll be able to participate in. And we also have a mapping tool where you can share where you live, where you want to go, what you like when you're biking in the county, or maybe some things that you want to add to the map of where you would like the Central Bikeway to go. So we have 2 other interactive ways that you can participate during this phase of the project.
And then we are, just to add on that a little bit, Brent, there will be 2 other rounds of engagement happening later throughout the process. So later on in the presentation, we have a slide that talks about future engagement. And then we also have a poll question, because we'd love to hear your feedback if you have ideas, since we're just at the beginning of this project, on how we can outreach in your neighborhood and get good feedback throughout the project.
It's also possible that if you are part of an organization or a group, we can come and speak to you at one of your meetings and come directly to you as well and share information about the project in your own community. All right, with that, I think we'll move on to the next slide. If there aren't any other questions. Thank you, everyone. Okay.
Well, yeah.
With that, I'm going to hum over to Emily to show you the really pretty pictures.
Sounds good. Well, I'm Emily Duchan with Alta, and I'm excited to be here today and talk about the Central Bikeway project. And thanks everybody for joining us on your lunch. We really appreciate your time. So the term bike superhighway sort of dates back to the early 2000s to a number of bikeways in the Netherlands and London and Copenhagen. But there are regional bikeways that are serving right now as these bike superhighways around the world, including the San Tomas Aquino Trail here in Santa Clara. You can see from these examples on the screen that they come in many shapes and sizes, from a bikeway in the median of a street with shade trees in Bogota, Colombia, to bikeways along the edge of road corridors or highway corridors with protection from adjacent vehicles. That level of protection varies from wide landscape setbacks to narrow curbs, or having bridges, as somebody asked in a question, to cross major barriers or intersections to really create that seamless interface we're searching for. So what all these bikeways achieve and what we're shooting for is that they're comfortable or low stress, meaning that they provide a really good user experience. They're accessible, so you can get to the places you want to go. They're direct, and the continuous routes provide an efficient option for long distance bike travel. That may be 3 miles, that might be 20 miles. You saw in Brent's earlier map, we're looking eventually to really make corridors across the county. So internally we've been using the term bike superhighways, but we're not exactly really sure what to call them here in our county. So we want to hear from you on a name that resonates with you. So we have our next poll everywhere question. And again, you can go to the link pollev.com/altaplanning107. It's the same link that you used previously. And you can just type in a description that you'd like to use to describe a comfortable long distance bike route. What do you think it should be called? Is the question being activated for folks? Okay. Okay, so you can go ahead and type in your responses, and it should show up on the screen here. Maybe it's a bike superhighway or a bicycle freeway. We've heard rapid bikeway. Maybe you have another creative idea. We want to hear them. Car-free route, bikeway, freeway, some words coming in. Thank you all for participating in the survey. The results are coming in. Jennifer, do you see anything that jumps out to you, or Brent, that you'd like to highlight of what you're seeing here?
Car-free is and safe are really coming up big.
Yeah, I like that. I like this word cloud. I like
It's
seeing safe
interesting.
in there as well.
Yeah, and someone put pedestrian free.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that we as a team have been talking quite a bit about as well. Is this a place just purely for bikes, or should pedestrians be allowed on the facilities as well? So that's a good insights. Thank you all. Intersections,
Great.
ooh, always a challenge.
Yeah, and the word cloud does break up if you put a space in between your words, but that's okay. We'll, on the back end, we'll be able to capture your complete name. So thank you for contributing. I'm going to go ahead on to the next thing. So the project partners that Brent introduced have drafted some goals which will be used to guide the evaluation and design of the bikeway alternatives that are developed. So Brent showed the study area, that blue box, which was identified through the county bike planning process. And now we're narrowing down which corridors the central bikeway should be on. And these goals will really help to guide us to evaluate to determine which alternatives best serve the community. So the first goal is project compatibility. And this project is building upon the great planning work that's been done. And one goal is to really ensure that compatibility with previous and existing planning efforts in the study area. We certainly want to build a bikeway that will serve you, and that is a community desired project. So we want to hear about your desires and needs so we can design a bikeway to help you get around. And a bikeway that improves your mobility and connections to the destinations you need and want to go is very important. Are those transit stations? Is that getting to work, schools, or going to shop or going shopping? All of those aspects are things that are important at that mobility and access goal. A safe bikeway is paramount, a bikeway that provides separation from vehicle traffic, as well as considers your personal safety. Also a bikeway that enhances user well-being and provides a comfortable and joyful experience to access green space is a goal of the project. And also a bikeway that improves access to opportunities for traditionally underserved communities, especially in low-income communities of color. So we have another poll question for you of, which of these goals is more important to you in helping determine, what kind of route you would want to ride. This is going to be a new type of poll question where we're going to ask you to rank your preferences. So instead of just picking multiple choice, you get to provide which order from highest to lowest is your preference. So to do that, once the poll is open, you're going to click on the gray bar with the text in it, and two arrows will appear. And you can click on the up and down arrows to move them in order. So you use the up arrow, for example, to put your most important goal to the top, and you can use the bottom arrow to click down and move it down. So then you're going to hit the submit button, which is also important to make it work. So I will start the poll, and you can go back to your browser, your internet browser again, to start participating in this activity. So I also want to encourage everybody, if you have an idea that you're not seeing on this list, to feel free to type it into the Zoom Q&A box or the YouTube Q&A comment box. If something that you think is not captured in some of these choices.
It's fun to watch you all.
Yeah, as these come
battle
in,
it out.
See, yeah, separation from cars is ranking really high. And now in second place, a route that connects to a number of community destinations.
Largely separated from cars is also a very common theme that both City of Santa Clara and San Jose have heard throughout their bike planning work as well.
Yeah, it's always tough when you have to make hard choices about ranking things. And I think we all agree that it's nice to have a joyful and peaceful experience, but you know, some of the safety elements are really rising to the top. Okay, thank you for participating in the survey. I'm going to go on to our next topic. You know, we understand there can be a number of factors really that can prevent you from biking more often or even to more places. And understanding your current challenges better helps design a bikeway that addresses these challenges and encourages people to use it. So we've created just sort of these 5 high-level categories that summarizes some of the challenges, and that's grouped into, you know, safety concerns. Are you concerned about personal safety from traffic or from other sources? Or maybe roads and bikeways aren't comfortable for you to ride on. They have too many potholes. Or maybe biking is just inconvenient because your destinations are too far away, or it takes too much time, you don't have the time to do it, or there's not direct connections to maybe your transit stops. Maybe there aren't bikeways where you need them. So there isn't secure bike parking at the destinations you want to go to, or maybe you just have other personal reasons. Maybe you don't own a bicycle, or you don't have the physical strength or health to bicycle, or you don't want to arrive sweaty and messy to work. So this is another ranking poll. We would love for you to go back to Poll Everywhere and tap on the bar and then use the arrows to click, you know, your biggest challenge to the top, and move your, you know, less important challenge to the bottom that prevents you from riding your bike more often. So are these safety concerns, or that the roads aren't comfortable? Is it that biking is sort of inconvenient, or there aren't bike facilities where you need them to go? Or maybe there's just personal reasons that really prevent you from riding your bike more often. Again, if your challenge is not one of these choices, we'd like to hear your feedback in the Q&A box and the Zoom.
So looking at these, the roads being uncomfortable is clearly staying at the top of the list.
And thank you everyone for submitting other feedback in the Q&A too. We're taking that and documenting that.
Following up with the comfort of road facilities are that there aren't bike facilities where I need them. And then of course, safety comes up. So these are really interesting to see. And we'd love to hear some of the personal reasons. I know it's a general category, but if you want to type that into the Q&A as a comment, we'd love to make a note of those too.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so we talked about some challenges. How about some things that make it more joyful? So transportation projects have not historically considered joy as a measure of success. And in fact, this is VTA's first project with joy as a project goal, which really creates an opportunity to ensure that the bikeway is a desirable place to be. So we want to hear a little from you about what makes biking joyful from you. Is it because you feel part of your community and you feel like you belong on the route, or the route makes you feel more connected to your neighborhood and city? Or because the experience is stress-free? It's a route that's very intuitive and easy to follow, and there's lots of space for you and somebody else to bike together. Or is it connected to where you want to go? There's many different places you can travel to, and you can change your mind mid-route, or there's a variety of interesting places to stop or see along the route. Maybe there are interesting senses along the way. So there's a sense of peace and quiet, or a place that you can find some solitude from your everyday stress. Or there's great smells or sounds along the route that you don't experience using other modes. Or maybe the route is unique or special, and it allows you to experience your neighborhood in a city in unique or engaging ways. So this is our last ranking question. So again, ranking in the order of importance, being the top most important to the bottom, the least important of factors that would make a bike ride joyful for you. And if you have other ideas of joy, please type them into the Q&A box, and we can review them during the Q&A portion of the presentation. And
so stress-free is coming up, and I mean, I've seen in the comments people are expressing that sometimes it's hard to rank these because they seem so similar, and that's part of the challenge of what we're trying to capture. Brent, if you want to elaborate a little bit on how these questions overlap and why they may be a challenge and you know, an appealing aspect at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that's unique is joy is different for everyone. And your connection to a place, either how it makes you feel, maybe how it smells, how you can interact with the environment, is different for everyone. And a facility that goes to those places will hopefully make you want to ride on it more. And hopefully it also is ingrained in connecting to you at the same time where you need to go, either a job or to see a family member or to school or something like that. And so we're trying to understand how these elements could be included in the project, either through design or location of the project, and some feedback on them I think will really help us. Even though they're all interrelated, it's something that we've been talking about as a team. Basically every conversation we have, how we include this idea of joy in the project. This is really great. And they're also seeing great comments again coming in through the Q&A, particularly on the last question, lots of comments about safety and bike lockers. So we appreciate that as well.
well, I know that that the poll everywhere, it works well for some people, and I know it can be frustrating for other people. And so I just want to take this time to introduce our online survey and let you know that there are a lot of the survey, or all of the survey questions we asked during the presentation are on the online survey, and there's a lot more detail of options that you can choose on the online survey. And provide lots of written comments. So I think we have enough time that I'm going to go ahead and give a little demo of our online tool. So just bear with me while I pull up the website. Okay. So when you go, you can find this on the project website, the project webpage, centralbikeway.org, and this direct survey actually has a link too. It's centralbikeway.vta.org, which you see on our screen over here. And so the survey will be available in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Chinese shortly. We're still working through the translations, but that will be posted shortly. And there's two main activities. There's a series of survey questions, and then there's also a map activity. So I will go ahead and do a demo of the map activity. So we really want to capture your neighborhood wisdom and hear about what are the important places you want to go. And that starts by selecting the area that's closest to your home, so we know, where you're going to be coming from. And we tried to make it pretty abstract. So I'm going to say I'm coming over by the high school, and I'm going to click that hexagon and save your location there. And after you hit save, it takes you to a series of buttons where you can use these buttons to mark locations where you frequently go by biking or walking or taking the bus or the train or places you drive, or another mode. If you often scooter or skateboard or do another mode, you can select from one of those modes. And on this screen, we're really trying to create, record destinations that are important that you want to get to. And so you can either choose that by a mode, or maybe you just want to put in a bunch of important destinations using this gray destination button. So I'm going to choose a biking destination. And the first time that you pick a destination, you're going to see a tutorial box. And so it simply tells you that you can use your mouse or your touch screen to click on the map to add a marker. So I'm going to go ahead and add a marker over here at the park. You can type your name or an alias. You can provide a comment if you have some feedback about that particular destination, or you can leave it blank. And when you hit save, you'll be taken back to these buttons, and you can add as many destinations as you'd like. When you're done adding destinations, you can just go to you can scroll down on the left-hand side of your screen, and you can go to the next button. We're also trying to understand and learn from you where are places that you find challenging, unsafe, or uncomfortable to ride a bike. And so you'll use the same process of clicking on a challenge and then going to the map and clicking on an intersection, and you can provide feedback if there's something specific that you know about that challenge, the road condition or the number of cars. You can share that or just leave it blank. And then when you hit next, it takes you to the final mapping activity, which is about envisioning the Central Bikeway, and sort of gives you the opportunity to draw your dream route for the Central Bikeway. This could be very high level if you just say, yeah, I want to be able to connect here or there, or you can be very specific and zoom into a road and say, I want to be able to access, I would like to see a route along El Camino Real, for example. So you can click on the draw route button. Again, it'll take you through a tutorial. I'm going to walk you through the tutorial instead. So you'll click on the road. I already made a mistake, and that's okay, because I can go back and fix it by clicking on the point again. If you'd like to move a point, you can just click on it and move it to a different place. When you're done, you can double click on the line and hit save, and it will be saved. So like that, you'll be able to hit the save button, and your route will be recorded. So we're excited to get your feedback on the map and the survey tool. And again, there's more places to provide specific and general feedback for the project on that on the online tool.
Okay, great. So as I had mentioned before, we kind of wanted to preview for everyone the times in which we'll be seeking engagement and feedback from you all. And so we're currently right now in round 1 of our outreach, and we've talked about vision for the project today and what your needs may be and what your challenges are. And the online map that Emily just went through will further collect those items kind of on a map so we can see them in the study area, which will be very helpful. Realize we're doing all of this virtually, so this is a new thing for many of us, and so we anticipate too in the second round also doing another round of virtual outreach. We will be talking about then potentially lines on a map and alternatives for where this facility may go. And we plan to be looking at 3 different routes throughout the study area, and you will all have an opportunity to comment on them and see them. And then finally, our third round, we hope to narrow that down. That will allow VTA and our city partners and our funding partners to kind of focus and strategize on how we'll actually implement the Central Bikeway and seek funding for it and build it in the future. And we'll produce our document, a draft document, which you'll also have the opportunity to review later in the project. Okay. So, last question. Do you all have any ideas for how we can promote future workshops or future study updates? Interested in more meetings like this, meetings in your own virtual spaces, perhaps. Feel free to type in responses. Town halls, call-a-thons, you name it. We're all ears. Online, next door, social media, pop-ups, farmers markets. This is great. Hopefully these are all places that you're all going to. So through employers, I see. That's nice. BTA does have a list of transportation professionals that work for businesses across the county, and we often engage through them on project related information, and they help us distribute that information out to employers. So it's a good reminder for us. Thank you. Clubs. Through schools. That's great. It's small, but it's on there. Bike groups, bike in general, things related to bikes. Oh, wow. Look at all these ideas. This is fabulous. Thank you, everyone. Flyers. So, you know, our partners at Meta and Guadalupe are also going to be engaging directly with many groups in the community. We'll be equipping them with materials that are translated that they can share to hopefully help them disseminate information to your communities and to your groups as well. So you'll be seeing them more in the community over the coming months. Any other observations from the team?
I'm just excited to look at the the official list instead of the word cloud sorted list.
Great. Okay. If you have more ideas, you can type them into the Q&A as we move forward. Should we move on, Emily? That's great. Okay. Thank you all. That was super helpful. So believe it or not, we've gotten through most of the content we had prepared today, and we're actually on schedule, which is amazing. And so now is an opportunity for us to do kind of a larger Q&A session. This will be an opportunity where if you like, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. And so there's a feature down at the bottom of your screen that you should see the ability to raise your hand. If people have questions, our thought was that I could call on a few participants first, and then Libby and Jennifer will answer some questions that are written into the Q&A. So we'll kind of go back and forth. This will allow us a little bit of time to sort through some of the questions that you're typing in, while we're also handling some of the questions live. So it looks like, Scott, you have a question. So if you'd like to unmute yourself. Thanks for attending.
Yeah, hi, thanks for the meeting. My question, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. My question is, in deciding where the superhighway will go, what role is data playing in terms of particularly crashes, places where cyclists have experienced injury on streets or even off streets?
Thank you for that, Scott. I think, Emily, if you could jump in and maybe help provide an answer to Scott on that one, that would be great.
Sure. So collision data, we'll be looking at it and using it in a couple different ways. So early on, we will be, as part of our existing conditions analysis, documenting the crashes within the study area, and looking to see what those hotspots are, where those are located. And then as we move further through the design process, once we have some preferred or 3 alternative corridors, we can actually look at what those crashes are and make sure that we're designing solutions to address those previous safety hazards, and make this the goal of this project is to make the roadway safer for everybody. So if we are going to be changing a corridor and building new infrastructure, it's actually an opportunity to improve safety for all roadway users. And we'll be able to look at the types of crashes and come up with engineering solutions to mitigate those previous questions, those previous safety concerns.
Great, thanks, Scott. Let's take a next question from Atisha.
Hey, so I'm Atisha
Hi.
and I live in North Santa Clara. My question is, how much of this work is going to inform the private development on the, adjoining lots? Because a lot of time, those are the main conditions you're biking through, and how you connect the bike lane from these private developments is equally important beyond the right of way of this alignment. So how much is this study going to really inform that, hey, if you're building next to this really expensive public infrastructure that has gone through public, taxes, hey, private developer, you need to make sure that you're treating this with all the respect it needs to, and, enhancing the, condition and adding to it.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That is exactly the type of work that we're doing right now. So as part of our early analysis, we're looking at projects in our cities that are being built, and particularly the larger ones that may affect, the network of how people get to and from places. And so we plot those out, and they become a data source for us and part of the project. And then we also look in the long term too about housing and jobs that are being built in our cities that are not yet built, but are coming down the pipeline, if you will, to better understand how the Central Bikeway could potentially serve those places in the future as well. So it's kind of a balancing act. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Libby, Jennifer, I'm going to call on you to read aloud 2 of our written questions from the Q&A.
Sure, we've got one that asks, are the folks involved in this planning cyclists themselves? Are they frequenting these areas to understand the current situation and understand what destinations residents may go to?
So if I understand this, if those involved in the project are cyclists ourselves? Is that the question?
Right. I think, and Gabby, feel free to chime in if you're still with us to clarify, but it sounds like they want to know a little bit more about who's involved and what stakeholders we're engaging in the planning for this project.
That's great. Yeah, many of the team members, at least working on the project, are cyclists themselves. And then we've also, the organizations that we're reaching out to are very involved in the cycling community. One of our main partners on our project and part of the Alta team just so happens to be the Bike Coalition. And so they're very interested in our bicycle network, safety for bicyclists, and work very closely with that community about challenges that they have and wishes that they have for the bicycling network as well. But we also want to reach those kind of hard to reach audiences as well. And we're really hoping that our partners, Jackie and Sarah from Meta and Guadalupe River Conservancy, can help us reach some of those groups and individuals that don't necessarily always have a voice or are part of processes like this, yet they still bike every day and they have great feedback. So they'll be helping us kind of reach some of those communities as well.
I've unmuted Gabby. I hope that answered your question. Did you need to clarify?
No, thank you for answering that. Yeah, I actually had a different question as well.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question verbally, and then we'll move on to the next person. If you had another question, go ahead, Gabby.
Yeah, looking at the map, I see that the western boundary for the study area is Lawrence Expressway. And for residents in Santa Clara and perhaps in San Jose, other destinations could be Sunnyvale, Mountain View, places like that. Will that be part of this study? Is that a separate study? You know, if this highway is built, having connections there would be huge as well.
That's a great question. So Gabby's made a keen observation that, you know, there are other facilities that may come in contact with the Central Bikeway. And I think the vision is that Central Bikeway would eventually continue further west into Sunnyvale and connect to other corridors. For example, there's another project up the corridor called the Peninsula Bikeway, which goes through many of our northwesterly cities through the top of the county. And so we will be engaging with Sunnyvale as well, as they are a kind of border city on what their plans are. They're just not a core team member as part of this project. So thank you for that, Gabby. Libby, did you want to ask a question from the Q&A?
Yeah, so I'm just going to make a quick comment. We got a lot of notes from people regarding secure bike parking as being an issue and the desire for more bike lockers. So I want to highlight that Peter Bennett has left a note in the Q&A. Any attendees are commenting about bike lockers and have San Jose locations in mind can send them an email, peter.bennett@sanjoseca.gov. So thank you to everyone who's been sharing those comments.
For those of you that don't know Peter, he works on the bike team at the city and is very involved with placing secure bike parking throughout the city. So thanks for being here, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So we've had a few questions sort of around the different uses. Two questions from the same person asking around if we're planning to separate pedestrian and bicycle traffic or if it will be mixed use. And similarly regarding modes, will it be designed to accommodate the higher speeds of electric bicycles?
So two-part question, will the facility be able to accommodate electric bicycles, high-speed bicycles? So like classifications, I assume like 28 miles per hour is maybe what someone's referring to there. Mm-hmm. It's a great question. We haven't discussed that as a team yet, but we do envision this facility to be a facility that connects you quickly to places. And so that's great feedback and a very insightful question that we'll have to consider as part of this project. And then the other part of the question, Libby, if you could restate it.
Yes. Are you planning on separating pedestrian and bicycle traffic, or will it be mixed use?
At this time, that's actually something that we haven't yet decided. You'll notice in a few of the questions that we asked, we did get some feedback, some opinions on that. And it's definitely something we've talked about as a team, whether or not pedestrians are allowed on the facility. I do want to note that we are envisioning this primarily as a bicycle facility, you know, to help bicyclists navigate through the county, but we recognize that when you plan for spaces, you know, pedestrians may use it as well. So we're going to have to determine how we account for that. Emily, I just wanted to note we're not seeing the presentation. Did you need some assistance? Did you want someone else to share?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, sorry you guys, technical difficulties on my computer, it crashed. So if somebody, I'm unable to see what you guys see anymore, but I'm on audio, so.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up my presentation and we'll just share the contact information there for you all. Why don't we take one more question from the Q&A and then we'll go to another show of hands.
Another another question that may clarify a little bit about who's working on this. Someone asked, are the people planning this project living in Santa Clara County? So I don't know if you guys want to elaborate a little bit on who everyone is.
As in terms of our users, do you think is what they're asking?
Well, this is a question also from Atisha. It just says, are the planning team living in the county?
Okay. Yes, our team is a diverse team. Many of us live here in the county. You know, we have representatives from all of our cities. Many of them live in both Santa Clara, San Jose, and other cities as well. Some members of our team are not from here. They do live in other places. The majority of the team all has, you know, vast knowledge and experience of working in the bicycle community for years, both in other places. And then we do actually have some international support on our team as well, to provide some guidance on the way that facilities are built and designed in other places. So we have a really diverse mix of experience on the team. Okay, let's see what else. Oop, I apologize. I just stopped sharing my screen. Let me share again. If someone could call on someone else for me, that would be helpful, who has their hand raised.
Okay, we've got the Bike Coalition. SBBC admin. You can accept the unmute.
Try again. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Is that affirmative?
I
Yep.
can hear you. Go ahead.
Great, sorry. One of the things I think is important, and we think is important about new bicycle infrastructure, is how well connected it is to other bicycle infrastructure. And you seem to be kind of asking people to comment on this plan kind of as a solo project and not as part of a network. So I'm wondering how you can make it more clear to people how this interacts with other bicycle connections, because that should determine where it goes, right? The important bicycle connections are going to be important to making this a useful feature.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. You know, I could elaborate on that a little bit. You know, the reason why this kind of area was selected was that it has already great bicycle facilities in it, namely the trail corridors that I talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation. So San Tomas Aquino, Guadalupe, the future Coyote Creek Trail as it's built out in East San Jose, and also the Upper Penitencia Creek Trail. And then we're also using really great planning work that Santa Clara, the county, and San Jose have already done in their cities for their network of streets. So we're looking at their street types, the types of facilities that they would like to see, whether they're protected facilities and what those locations are, and reviewing those, at least the ones that are in the study area, to determine, you know, maybe perhaps the types of alignments we would like to see. And then our team is also looking outside the study area as well, several miles outside the study area, to understand how people will kind of enter the Central Bikeway on a bike or leave the kind of corridor on a bikeway too, to better understand how people will access this, this facility in the future. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. I'll just add a little bit onto that, Brent, in saying that, you know, we are really focused on this east-west this east-west corridor, you know, because it was shown as a priority from the county bike plan. But we're certainly going to be thinking about the connectors and how people are going to get to it and get off of it. And so, you know, we're going to be building upon a lot of the previous planning work that, you know, San Jose recently has completed in the county in terms of measuring some of the traffic stress along the existing connectors, and having that definitely be a way that we evaluate which corridor is really going to be the best. And so, you know, when we come back is in the next round of engagement, and we can start to bring some of those corridors forward, we will also be looking at like, what are the connectors, like how do people get to this corridor, and are they going to be able to reach their destination on a safe bike facility from it? So we're definitely thinking about that.
Yeah, my request was more about providing more of that information to the public, like on your map. You don't show any existing routes on your map or any planned infrastructure. So it takes away the abilities of the public to make good comments, because they can't see what else is, is there something else on the street next door, because there's nothing on this map.
Thank you. That's good feedback. I see a hand raised from Atisha again. Do you have another question?
Yeah, actually, I would really add to the previous question and comment saying, like, not just add the bike lanes, please add land use, like some of the key destinations to that map, because otherwise it's just like a bunch of lines and no one knows where you're going. So please have land use as an active part of this ongoing process.
That's great. So related to your previous question about the
land
connection
use
between
and
the two.
PDAs. I know like the specific plan was recently done in the city of Santa Clara. There's a lot of like priority development areas, opportunity zones. So like just having some of this, future, it might also help the design team to like figure out. And my other question is like, how are you dealing with micromobility and shared shared micromobility, because city of Santa Clara does not have any right now, and we should have something. But like, how are you future planning whenever city of Santa Clara allows us to have micromobility and shared mobility?
That's also a great question on micromobility. I don't know if we thought too much about that in detail. Is there anyone from the team that wanted to comment on that, or perhaps one of our city partners who's also a panelist?
This is John Brazil. I know in the city of San Jose, we do allow e-scooter and shared micromobility on our bikeways, and the e-scooters are capped at 12 miles per hour because I know speed can be an issue. And so we view this at a very macro level as e-scooters and shared micromobility being the types of solutions that can help people get from A to B in a safe and convenient way, and that would be appropriate, at least for San Jose's view, on a superhighway.
Great, thanks, John. Do we have any other questions from the Q&A team?
We do. Yes,
okay,
we do.
Go ahead, Libby.
Yes. One question, how do you plan on integrating the bicycle superhighway with the existing bicycle infrastructure?
Yeah, that's one of the goals of this study, is to look at what is there currently, what is planned in our cities currently. So what visions Santa Clara and San Jose have, what are they pointing towards, and what is the county looking at? Thinking about ways that we can either capitalize on those facilities that they plan to be investing in, or looking for locations or options that may be new that haven't been discovered yet. I think it's going to be hopefully a combination of both. And Emily, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, certainly. One of the main goals is definitely sort of that project compatibility and building upon what's been done. This is just the next step in the implementation of, providing safe and convenient bikeways.
Yeah, and for the person that asked that question, if there are particular places or things that you would like us to identify or note that we're looking at, please feel free to submit that feedback to us. That would be very helpful. Thank you. In terms of infrastructure.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions in the Q&A, so I'll give the next one, and Jennifer, if you want to share a couple more. One of these questions it's more of a comment, but I think there's an answer as well. This person says, I will certainly provide input on this project, but I agree with the questioner who mentioned the need to include surrounding city areas. This current central bikeway area is very limited in scope. It should be coordinated with other municipalities from the beginning, even if actual build out is initially limited. And so, Brent, it might be nice to highlight some of the coordination that's happening with this project.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, there are a lot of different types of agencies in the county that plan bicycle facilities. There are cities, the county itself, and then there's also VTA. And it's actually a role that people don't know a lot about VTA, but we're generally involved in bicycle planning from a more macro perspective in the county. The network overall, helping cities fund their projects and infrastructure. So a lot of the money for projects for cities or for the county comes through VTA. But we also work with our jurisdictions on projects like this, Central Bikeway, where facilities cross different jurisdictional lines. We're kind of at a unique place as an agency where we can help play a middle person role and combined all of our strengths together in one. And so that's what we've really done with our team here on Central Bikeway. We're using planning efforts that have recently been completed, and I've mentioned this a few times, in Santa Clara and San Jose. And both cities have done great work to date, and we're going to be building on that to hopefully build the Central Bikeway. We don't know if VTA will eventually build this, or maybe it will be built in segments by our city partners or county partner in the future. But that's one of the things we'll be trying to discover kind of later on in the process when we talk about how we'll implement a facility like this. So thank you very much. Jennifer,
Well,
did you want to ask?
Yeah, I've got another one related back to outreach. How are you planning to target outreach to the interested but concerned percentage of the population we want to get writing?
Sorry, what was the very last part? That we want to?
That we want to get writing. How are we bringing in the interested but concerned bicyclists?
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's a few different methods that we're doing that. Really, we're delivering the planning work for this project differently than we have on any project ever before. We've really thought about ways as an agency that we can connect better to those harder to reach groups than by just trying to do it ourselves. So some of the ways we've done that as an agency, we've actually selected a team, Alta's team, and they have a partner who is a nonprofit, the Bike Coalition themselves, who are engaging actively in the bike community. And we've also brought on our community-based organization partners, Meta LLC and the Guadalupe River Conservancy. And they have their own networks within the community that they can engage with and provide additional expertise to us that we may not have as a government organization. And just want to be mindful that we're recognizing that. I think we also have an opportunity to potentially partner with another organization in the future if there's an identified need or a specific community that we're maybe not reaching currently now in the project. We have available budget to do that on the team here. And if anyone from the Alta team would like to add, go for it.
Yeah, you know, one of the reasons that we're asking, you know, demographic questions and questions about barriers to cycling is because after each round of engagement, we are going to be doing an evaluation of who were we able to reach, and who did we hear feedback from, and how can we make adjustments as we move forward in the project. So, you know, asking that's how we're trying to identify if we are reaching the right people, and we're building in steps to be able to try and, you know, be nimble and make adjustments along the way in between these different, you know, points in time that we're engaging folks.
We've also had a series of interviews with about 10 or 15 other organizations, and many, all organizations that work in our local communities. And many of those organizations, some of which actually joined here today, are interested in kind of being an affiliate partner and helping us to distribute information to their own networks in the community. So we're trying to create a multi-tiered approach to our outreach, recognizing that not everyone can come to a virtual meeting like this either during the day or during the evening, and that people still want to receive information in other ways. All right, I don't see any other hands raised. Did anyone want to raise their hand who's still on the call?
We have a couple more questions also in the Q&A.
Okay. I
We
don't see any takers, so why don't we go to one of those, Libby?
Great. We have a question. Who ultimately will maintain the bikeway after its construction, the cities it goes through, VTA, or both?
It's a great question. Also a question we're asking ourselves. That's going to be part of the implementation phase, kind of the later part of the study, where we're going to try and determine that type of model. We don't exactly know yet whether it will be VTA, whether it will be the cities that the route is in their jurisdiction, or the jurisdiction where the route happens to be on one of their streets. There are different models in different places in the world, and I think we'll be kind of reviewing those throughout the study. Some places there's a central agency that maintains superhighways, and in others it's done through kind of like a partnership model with multiple agencies working together. If you have, the person that asked that question, if you have thoughts on a preferred method or challenges to any of those, we're all ears and would like your feedback. Maybe, maybe that feedback's based on experience that you have today riding on bicycle facilities. So that would be very helpful for us. We have about 10 more minutes left if we had a few more questions.
Oh, I see another one in the chat
Okay.
About the configuration of the facility. If we will be considering a multi-use facility for cyclists, scooters, and pedestrians, could the path or trail be wide enough to accommodate 2 lanes in each direction? Basically, some sort of configuration to separate faster users from slower users.
That's a great question. Emily, would you like to comment on that one? She's smiling.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to. Yeah, it's a great question. So we'll certainly want to think about all of those things, and depending on the corridor, I think there's opportunities for the bikeway, for this central bikeway, to look a number of different ways. So first of all, the goal of the project, right, is to increase the number of people on the corridor. And so to be able to do that safely, we need to have a comfortable space for all users going various speeds. And so we are going to be doing some modeling where we'll be projecting, the demand and how many people we think would be using various segments of the bikeway, so that we can make sure that the proposed cross-section can accommodate the various users that we need it to be. Part of the goal of this project is making it convenient, and that means that it is direct, and for some cyclists it can be a way that they can move through the space efficiently. So we do want to accommodate those higher design speeds for cyclists who are really wanting to make a longer distance trip. But we understand that when we dedicate, we don't get that many opportunities to dedicate corridors for active modes or people who are not in cars or a train or a bus. And so we don't want to be short-sighted and miss out the opportunity to create space for all different types of users who want to use the facility. And so I think it's definitely something we're going to be digging into, those design details of what that cross-section is and how we can make space along the different corridors to accommodate those different users who move at different speeds.
Thanks for the details, Emily. Any other Q&A questions?
We have one more.
This has been really great.
Yeah, I agree. These questions are wonderful. We have another question around funding. So the question is, there is limited funding for bicycle infrastructure. Some projects have not been implemented that have been in the county's plans for over 10 years. Will the planning include cost estimates and funding recommendations?
Yes, it will. It will include both of those. This project would also, because it's identified in the countywide bike plan, VTA's countywide bike plan as a corridor, it would be potentially eligible for future Measure B bicycle and pedestrian funding as well. So that is an existing tax that VTA has for transportation infrastructure throughout the county. And so at a later date and time, it could potentially be funded through that. There are also a multitude of other funding sources that we would most likely be reviewing, funding from the state or other types of grants or opportunities available to us as well. And the benefit of having our partners on board for a study like this very early on in the study, our cities and our county, is that they have access within their own general funds and own funding sources too, to hopefully combine resources. So by working together, we can hopefully implement elements of this project.
We're out of questions over here.
That's great. Okay. If there aren't any more, we'll give just one last opportunity for people to raise a hand if they'd like. And if there are none, I think we'll close out our meeting. Let everyone grab a sandwich for those that haven't ate.
Oh, one last comment
Okay.
about just next steps and upcoming meetings.
So let me go back to our other outreach slide here. So our second round of outreach is will be occurring kind of earlier next year. We're going to take all this feedback, this great feedback that we got today. We're really excited to see what the survey and the map yields, and then we'll be coming back out to engage you all in the next few months. We're always available for questions or comments that you want to submit, and you can do that through our multitude of social media channels, Facebook, Twitter. You can also, for best access to project representatives, email us at community.outreach@vta.org or call us as well. Karen, who's on the call, is our primary outreach representative, and she kind of fields all those questions for the project team. So I think that was a great kind of wrap-up question. Is there anything else any other team members would like to say? If not, that's awesome. So thank you all so much for being here. Just speaking for the whole team, I know we really enjoyed this. We work so hard for meetings like this, and it's so great to see people show up and contribute. And if you haven't already, we ask that you go to the project website, check it out, submit comments, and there's also links on there to subscribe for future updates if you'd like to provide an email. So we'll put you on our email system, and we can add you for updates for the project in the future. So with that, I think we'll stop sharing and we'll end the meeting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.